Rinku Sen is the President and Executive Director of the Applied Research Center and the publisher of Color Lines magazine. A leading figure in the racial justice movement, Rinku is positioned ARC as the home for media and activism on racial justice. She has extensive practical experience on the ground with expertise in race, feminism, immigration, and economic justice. Over the course of her career, Rinku has woven together journalism and organizing to further social change. She also has significant experience in philanthropy as Vice Chair of the Schott Foundation for Public Education and as an advisory board member of the Philanthropic Initiative for Racial Equity. She's written extensively about immigration, community organizing, and women's lives for a wide variety of publications. Her book, Stir It Up, Lessons in Community Organizing, was commissioned by the Ms. Foundation for Women and released in the fall of 2003. Her latest book, The Accidental American, Immigration and Citizenship in the Age of Globalization, which is on sale outside and will be on sale after the lecture, won the Nautilus Book Award Silver Medal. She previously served as the Communications Director and Director of the Transnational Racial Justice Initiative at ARC. Prior to that, she held various leadership roles at the Center for Third World Organizing, a national network of organizations of color, where she trained organizers and crafted public policy campaigns. She started her organizing career as a student activist at Brown University, fighting race, gender, and class discrimination on campuses. She has a BA in Women's Studies from Brown and an MS in Journalism from Columbia University. So please join me in welcoming Rinku Sen.
Okay, I know this is a little weird, but this height is what I've got to work with, so bear with me. I thought that it might be good to start out with by telling you all a little bit about myself. Nowadays, as a professional, I do racial justice work, and you can sort of think of me as a professional person of color, the way that Pat Buchanan maybe is like a professional white man. But I wasn't always a person of color in my own mind, and I certainly wasn't always a race woman. And I think it's a little bit helpful to know how I came to be this person, in case you have the impression that racial justice activists are born and not made. So, let's see. Together here, okay. My family came to the United States when I was 5.5. This is me with my mom and my sister. We immigrated from India, and my dad was a metallurgical engineer. And so we came in 1972, and I grew up in white factory towns, largely white factory towns, just at the time that many of the factories were closing and leaving and abandoning their employees. So my dad actually never made it as a metallurgical engineer in this country. He, because of the recession of the 70s and because of the trends in manufacturing, he ended up changing jobs, getting laid off and changing jobs many times. We moved quite often while I was a kid. And eventually he started his own light construction business, and we became a small business family. And while I was growing up, I was really doing everything I could to figure out what it meant to be an American. I arrived here at 5 years old, and I'm a person who likes to throw herself into every new adventure. And so I was really excited to be here in the States and excited to be an American. But how do you do that? Nobody was going to tell my 5-year-old self how to do that. And so, luckily, there's always the television, and I watched a lot of that when I was a kid, and I'm talking about some 3 to 6 hours a day, with nobody stopping me. And I like to think of myself as proof that it's all right to park the kids in front of the TV and go about your business. They'll be all right. Although that was probably more true in the 70s than it is today. So, I watched The Brady Bunch and Charlie's Angels and Happy Days, and I kept trying to figure out through that, and by doing things like begging my mom to let us eat hot dogs for dinner, and learning to love spaghetti and things like that, I thought those were the things that were going to make me an American. You know, in the process, I internalized a bunch of messages about how it really was not cool to be an American of color. Americans of color had bad things happen to them, and I didn't have to be around a lot of Americans of color to still absorb that message. And so I was so allergic to my own brown skin in some ways that when it came time for me to go to college, even though I was, you know, dying to leave my parents' house and, you know, be independent and do the college thing, I actually skipped the pre-orientation that my campus held for incoming first-year students of color, because I thought that doesn't have anything to do with me, that's for people of color, and I don't know what I thought I was, but I wasn't that. So I went to college, and I you know, floated around my first year. And in my second year, this thing happened on campus where a black freshman got beaten up by 2 white football players. And that incident sparked a whole campaign for change on campus. So not just restitution for this guy who got beaten up, but also changes that people wanted around the curriculum and the faculty that got hired, and how students of color got integrated into the campus, and you know, how the campus indicated our values. So one of our demands, for example, was a new third world center where all the student organizations of color could hold events and exist and plan and do their work. So the current third world center was in the basement of the Afro-American Studies department, and we wanted a new one. So, or we didn't include me at the point that the campaign started, because there were these rallies and meetings happening, and I was still in my that's not me mode. And I was very lucky because I had 2 really good friends. This is Valerie. Valerie's a biracial black and white woman from Connecticut, and this is Yuko. Yuko was a Japanese national who was raised in the US. And one night, the 3 of us were hanging out, and there was going to be a rally the next day, and Yuko and Valerie wanted me to go, and I was not planning to go. I said, no, I'm not really interested, I'm busy, whatever. And my 2 very good friends, who are still my very good friends today, had a little talk with me, and they said, listen, you are not a girl anymore, you're a woman now. And this is 1984, they said, you're not a minority, you're a person of color. And it's time to grow up and come to the rally. So I went to the rally, and because my friends gave me this intense talking to, and I had this experience there where for the first time in 12 years, I just felt like I belonged. This is not an actual photo of that rally, which only had about 20 people, you know, kind of straggly looking student swords, you know, going around and around doing chants. But, you know, even in all its not very exciting qualities, I found in that rally a home, because I finally understood from being there that being an American wasn't about looking like Marsha Brady. It was about investing in the place that you found yourself in, and helping to make that community truly inclusive, one where everybody could belong and participate and thrive. And it was a really different concept of the American identity for me. And so once I experienced both that feeling of belonging and got involved in the campaign, and subsequently experienced us winning many of the things that we were making demands around. We got a new house dedicated to the purpose of being the Third World Center. We got a bunch of new faculty hired. We didn't quite win needs blind admission at that point, but we got a little step closer to it. So once I saw that people, regular people, just people in a community, could get together, identify their problems, challenge the institutions that were shaping their lives, they could actually change things. They could create solutions. And when I went back to school,